extenuating circumstances, something happened, a company that had mop, like for instance, that company that burned on South Freeway, if they would have had a mop right now, they're shut down, so they're not gonna be living up to their salaries for years. It happens, right?
Yep.
So, that would be an extenuating circumstances. Well, do we give them the mop because they haven't met their salaries, but they did encounter a hardship? So now this is gonna be a new mop, so that we have a little more flexibility in when you have a company that's in town, and we want to retain the employees to keep them from going to another town that's going to give them a mop. Give us more flexibility. This would give us rules that include that. Our old mop did not include red retention. Hi, Joe.
Hello. I know.
That's a new legislation.
I know, I told him, I didn't know,
That's what,
okay,
that's,
all right.
that's what you can read.
Joe, do you wanna, get started, this time to tell us what you and the mayor have been working on with the mop, or was it Tom?
Well, yeah, the law department drafted an amendment that's been on the agenda. Mr. Engel told Tom in my office that I want to take out the discretionary parts and some other ideas. Tom sent that out to you a week ago with other proposed amendments to create the ordinance.
I didn't meet with Tom. I just said I give it too much discretion. I didn't really contact Tom's.
I was asked to be here tonight for some reason.
Must be lovely.
So,
I think Tom was,
Got an empty
I
chair.
actually kind of, because he had worked on it.
I started working on it.
That's-
And so everything Tom's done, I've gone over with them, and everything that I did, I've
Well,
gone
then that
over
is
with
no
you.
problem then.
So yeah, we're all on the same page.
Okay.
We just figured you wanna run up more law department hours, that's why you invited us out tonight.
Oh, I see.
Well, no, Tom did state that, that we needed to have a meeting with the audit committee, so that, because they're the ones that are supposed to be, seeing if, everything is in conformance. Also, they're supposed to double check, and, he just said that.
These aren't legal questions. Those
No,
are-
he just said that they're very, that there's a lot of stuff going on with the mop, and it would be best if we have a work session with the law department. Isn't that what, am I right?
I don't think it was with the law department, but law department was invited, so we're here.
Well, yeah, that was the original discussion, but,
Okay.
okay,
So
so,
we'll play the tape.
well, we.
I'll get a public records request and get the tape.
Well, I think we probably can just go online at this point, we don't have to go through all that, but, anyway, so, I don't know, Rita, how did you want to proceed?
If you all read what we sent you, Tom had a cover letter, and it was addressed to me, and he sent it to you, and then the proposed ordinance. And basically changing the name, it's really not an occupancy program anymore, it's really more or less a jobs creation program. So he changed the name, and he underlined it, the parts that would be changed. Broke it down into two sections, a new business and existing businesses, and put in the amounts that we thought would be reasonable for new businesses. Raised it from $250 to $350. You can leave it at $250 if you want. That's your discretion. And then
The
made the
10
criteria for the
10.
current businesses a little less in order to give them incentive to stay in town and to, that's under subsection B, creating that new section for existing businesses. Because the whole idea of the ordinance, despite its name, was not to necessarily bring in new occupancy, but to keep occupancy of businesses. So it's
Well-
really to get jobs and get income tax.
Let's do both, right?
Yeah.
Keep in,
Keep jobs, make more jobs.
add to existing and bring in new people.
The original ordinance said the eligibility would be a company buying or leasing an existing vacant property shall be eligible. That's what it shall be. So the intent was to basically ensure the occupancy rate was high in Macedonia. Could I ask a question? What's our current number of MOPS and what's the total commitment in terms of the MOP that we've committed to, the amount of money? Anybody want to give me that answer?
Well, if we'd have known the question before, I'm sure we would have had an answer. I can take an educated guess and say there's about 4 MOPS left because MOPS roll off as time goes on. And we've been doing this since 2007.
So could we, let me just ask that question, and can we get I don't know who is actually going to provide that, but whoever would provide that.
We
could-
can provide that.
Okay, then I would like to see that.
So
Uh,
Don, with the new mops rolling, the mops that rolled off and everything, can they come back now? Huh?
No, they're done. This is a one-time deal, MOPS.
Okay.
No,
Did
you don't.
Blackburn get one originally?
Yeah, it is.
Did Blackburn get one originally?
No, you didn't vote it for him.
No, I'm talking.
Oh, you mean when he first went into business?
Mhm.
No.
I don't think he asked for it.
No. When they went into roll and roll, they went without a MOP.
So the current appropriation for reimbursement for MOPS, which I believe will happen, normally you get submissions in March, is that correct? Right now, we have an appropriation of $100,000 in that account. It's, so I'd like to know what our current commitment is and how many are still outstanding. We did make a commitment this year to Vista Springs for a MOP, which is the new assisted living building over there on South Bedford. There may, I'm trying to remember some of the others because I have seen quite a few since '09. So I'd like to know what the total commitment is in terms of what we're paying out and just the number of outstanding MOPS at this point. So we will get a list of that. I would like to have it, if possible, this is by no later than COB Monday.
Well, we all required legislation, so
Yes, well, I know, but,
your ordinances should tell you all that.
well, I know, but we have to go back and research every ordinance since X time, you know what I'm saying, Joe? So they should have that list anyway. And what is our current occupancy / vacancy rate in the city buildings? Because part of the purpose is to ensure that we maximize our income tax take. So are we, I know back in '09 and '10, we had some very serious problems. What is our situation now? What's our current issue with occupancy? Is it, somewhere between 90 and 100%, I'm assuming, but I would like to know that answer. And because that, from my standpoint, would be the purpose of any of these incentive packages would be to ensure that we're maximizing our intake of tax funds, tax revenue. And,
Well, there's another horse in the race, if I may, Sylvia,
Uh-huh.
and that is that other communities give MOPS.
Yes, I know.
And what we wanted was a tool that would be competitive.
Yeah, I understand they are, and, but, our purpose will be to make sure, at least, all right, let me speak for myself. My purpose, if if I'm looking at this from the resident's standpoint, it is obviously, why do we want businesses in town? Because we may need the services that they provide and make it convenient, but also because we are receiving tax revenue from those businesses, both income tax for the people working working for the companies that come in here, but also net profits tax, which is a significant component of our income tax intake. And the concern that I would have would be that we don't, from a financial standpoint, we don't make commitments that will actually decrease the revenue flows in that income tax area if we don't need to, if we don't have to do that. A specific business staying in this town is a concern, but a bigger concern would be, to me, again, occupancy rate and maximization of revenue.
That's a question.
Sure.
The income tax for that, that companies pay, income tax, what did you call it?
I'm sorry, the net profits tax?
Net profits tax,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
right.
How does a MOP affect the net profits tax that is paid on by the business? Or
Well,
does it?
the revenue that we're actually rebating is, or is coming out of general fund.
Right.
And it's not, I guess, because there's some sort of prohibition in state law against actually rebating income tax, but we're rebating tax money. What we're doing is rebating tax money of a different sort. In essence, all of the revenue flows that we're talking about are related to, in the MOP, to the actual income tax on the people working in those buildings.
Right.
And so if we offset that, then,
All right, question. They're gonna be paying in their normal rate, right? And then we're gonna refund 50% of it later. So there's no need to worry about the money that's in the account now, because they will be paying in toward that account, and you can just take half and give it back.
actually, they are paying in, that's correct. However, obviously, our concern about all income tax revenue, all tax revenue, is that we have a large number of activities that we need to support in the city, not only the regular operations, but capital investment like our roof, the roads, and so forth. So it's important that we maximize our tax.
Because you're only giving them a half back.
Yeah, what Al's saying is, you're never going to be depleting tax revenues you already have. You're
Well,
giving
I
back
get
up
that.
to 50% of new tax revenue
Well, I get
that's
that.
induced by the ordinance. So
Well-
you're gonna have a net increase
Right.
under every situation.
It just won't be the increase
Yes.
you would have expected. You're right.
In
You
this-
don't lose, you still gain, you just don't gain at the
But
rate,
Well,
amount that you thought.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yes, right. It's, if you're talking about a business coming into town who's going into a vacant building or a newly built building, in this case, Vista Springs, that would be true. If you're talking about a situation where you have a current business and they are paying X amount of money into this, the way the structure of this is written, for example, if they're paying, let's say they're, for an example, they're paying $50,000 in income tax. They had 5 jobs, and that increases their ability to, in other words, they're paying $50,000 in taxes. They would be adding maybe $5,000 worth of taxes, but you're gonna offset what they're paying by $22,000 in the case of the Blackburns. So yes, you would be losing revenue.
No, no.
No, you're not
Yes.
gonna lose.
You're gaining, you're
giving
going from
back half of what they
50,000
pay you.
to 52,000 to 500.
Right, but you're
You're
offsetting
increasing.
them MOP with a tax rebate, so to speak.
But the
of
rebate is
20.
still less than what you're getting. You're
Right,
only
it's
giving
half of
back
what you're
half.
getting.
You're getting 100% more
Yeah.
and giving back 50%.
But Joe, let me repeat what I just said. The way this was written, at least the way I understand it, we're talking about, we are crediting them for the entire payroll, not just the new
No,
payroll.
no. First paragraph.
Uh-huh.
It says 50% portion of the income tax paid as a result of the new jobs created. Only the new jobs created. It's in the old ordinance, it's in the
So in the case of the Blackburns, it would be.
If they increased it from 50,000 to 60,000 income tax because of the new jobs,
Okay,
we would possibly give them 5,000 back, so they would pay 55,000 in the new year.
okay, so the proposal originally was, in the Blackburn proposal, was to basically rebate $2.2 million, 2% of $2.2 million would have a rebate up to 50,000. And it was, I think I confirmed it, 22,000 a year for 6 years.
I don't know their details.
Well, I asked
Show
them.
me where you were pretty adamant about that.
Yeah,
Show me
first
where-
paragraph,
Last sentence.
last sentence.
All right, thank you.
So what you're saying is we've now modified that concept that was there, and you're saying that we will only rebate related to any new jobs.
Correct.
I have a question. I mean, we're talking about
And
all
that's
this
the
stuff
same
here.
in the old one.
And
The
the
07,
thing,
it says 50%.
point everybody is missing is they have a contract, okay? You get a new business in, they don't get a mop. They come in, they start up a business, 1 year low, bye. So now you lost all your tax revenue. They have a commitment. They're gonna be penalized if they don't live by it. Come hell or high water. This way, you got something locked in here where you don't have it, a new business can move in, start this great thing, and then fold up. And, you know, you start spending that tax money and all of a sudden it's gone, you know? So at least you know how much you're gonna lose a little bit, but, you know.
I'm not terribly concerned about that as I am about the overall occupancy rate. Individual businesses do come in, they fail, sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't do it, as in the case of some of these mops, they have not met their commitment, and therefore they don't get the mop. So there's a whole,
And they have to pay back what they did get.
but Joe, the way that the Blackburn mop was written was that, and the way that the original, it says, it has to create X amount, it said it had to be at least 250,000, but the actual table said that if their total payroll is 2 million to 3 million, you get 7 years of rebates at a 50% level of their total payroll. Now, you're saying that's not the case.
No, that would
No,
make
it's
no
not, so
sense.
if you read the new one, it's not
So-
like that.
Well, no, I'm not arguing that, I'm just saying that is the way that it was written.
But we're looking at the new one.
Well, I understand, so.
In 2007, it's the way I'm telling you.
So,
Right.
can I ask you a question? Are you
No,
telling,
it's,
are you telling us, Joe, that what was originally proposed as the Blackbird mod is no longer gonna be the proposed mod, it's gonna be rewritten?
No, it never was.
I know it was never a mod.
I mean, it was never, if you look at the ordinance that I drafted for you,
you're
it's,
talking about the one you drafted now.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, I don't know the number of it. No. Josephine, did that ordinance not get introduced? I guess you- No?
No, it's a working, well.
Yeah, there it is, 29. Yeah, it's 29, 2015.
Been held at second reading.
All right, if you notice, go under section 1, there's a 2.
Yes,
In between, or above the 2 is a 1, which is
Yes.
not being amended. The 1 goes back to the original ordinance, which is 2007.
which I have right here.
Yeah. And if you read number 1, it's only a grant of a rebate based upon the new employment,
Well-
not old employment.
Well, the schedule of benefits says total annual payroll, which in the case, this is why this whole issue.
It's a total of the new annual
Well,
payroll.
but it doesn't say that.
Well, it does in section 1.
No, it doesn't, the schedule of benefits doesn't say
I
that.
think what Sylvia is saying,
Yes.
there's a conflict.
Well, we've never had a conflict in enforcing it or applying it.
We're doing a new ordinance.
Yeah. And so I've made it clear in the new ordinance as well, but
Right.
if you want to take out some other language to make it clear yet, section 1 is the purpose, and it's to only give a rebate on new employment, new jobs created.
And I think to make sure it's clear,
Yeah.
we need to have 2 schedules, one for new jobs and one for new, existing companies where it specifically says it is based upon new
Any new employment.
employment. That's right. Which, at which point then I think what I don't think was ever signed,
Yeah.
is gonna also have to be changed, because the language in that seems to be talking about payroll of
Two-
2.2 million,
That's
where in
correct.
reality, that's not what.
Right.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and that was my point, Joe.
Okay.
The original one, which I validated with by email, with everybody getting a copy, was that they were suggesting that we would have 2% of 2.2 million, which is $44,000 a year, which then would be, we would give them 50% of that as a rebate, which is $22,000. So in essence, it was impossible to calculate that you would actually benefit from this proposal as it was originally written.
You could never benefit.
Right.
So we would
Correct.
never, yeah, of course.
Well, but it was written that way. I'm not saying we wouldn't.
Well, it's read
Yeah,
that
well,
way, but you're saying it's being read by somebody. It's never been read that way by the city since Bruno first brought this in. Steve Bruno did in '07.
Well,
And it's never been applied that way, so.
well, you may say so.
No one has gotten a tax rebate that reduced their total income tax to less than what they were paying before.
Well, in a lot of cases, we weren't giving it, we were giving it to
New
new occupants.
people.
So that was never an issue.
Yeah, up till now. yeah.
Up to this point, but now you're changing it and suggesting a different approach. I personally have no problem per
What's the dollar
se.
amount if we do it this way?
Five jobs though is a very small number of jobs. Now, so we make, instead of getting $4,000 in taxes, we get $2,000, it's probably trivial
Yeah.
in that case. But if you're talking something fairly major, then we need to look at it, but,
Can I ask one other question?
yes.
I think you said before that you could only apply for a MOP once for business.
I think the mayor did.
Somebody said that.
Yeah, once you
The
get
mayor
one,
said.
Right.
you can apply more than once, but if you already have one or had one, you don't get another.
You
Doesn't
know,
it
all
probably
I'm saying is,
understand?
I think that should be in the statute too, because we're rewriting it, we're wanting to make sure everybody knows the rules.
Thinking it is, if not, it should be, you're right.
Right, so I haven't specifically read for that issue, but I didn't see it before, and it was something that concerned me.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Thinking
idea.
you could always, every 10 years, and add a few more employees and give another month.
Let me ask this additional question. Very frequently, there are businesses in this town that are hiring 3 or 4 or 5 people in the last few years because they went down in the recession and they're adding people back and maybe going a little above. So what we would be doing is basically new revenue coming in from these jobs would be limited because there would be no way to discriminate between, let's say, most of the existing businesses, if they're adding 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever our number is gonna be, jobs, then every business in town would be asking for that, I
Well,
would
you
say.
have the discretion to not even accept an application for a MOP based on the fact that this is a little more unique. Sure, Walmart can add 5 more people, a restaurant can suddenly boom and have 5 more people, but in a situation that's unique where you have someone who's going to move, upgrade another building, add employees, and at the same time also bring in a business to the building that they're in now, those are different circumstances than a business just adding 5 people. So the council and the audit committee has the ability to look at every application and say yay or nay, good or bad. That doesn't mean that the mayor's gonna offer it to everybody who adds 5 employees.
What
There's
does- what
different
gives you a
business doing
circumstances
this
here.
unless there was a benefit for it. I think
Yeah.
when you look at the macro picture of all this, it comes down for me, in my opinion, would be attract and retain. Because there's a lot of businesses in town that we know we don't want to lose. I mean, I work for one of the largest ones in our town, and I can tell you that it's a very competitive market. We wouldn't want to lose that business. So if they said, hey, we're gonna add $250,000 in payroll, can we go after this new, whatever we're calling it now, job creation program? Now, that would be something that would be attractive to a company like that. So for me, it's attract and retain, and it also shows them that if they come in with a MOP agreement, they fulfill their agreement, and then they have growth down the road, this is another nice incentive to retain them even longer. So they're not gonna come at us for a nominal amount of money. I mean, it's nebulous to spend the time to do that, but
And the protection against Walmart and McDonald's doing it is the application fee we threw in there of $500 and the penalty if they don't fulfill the full term and drop below the new jobs that they guaranteed, then they pay another penalty. So I don't think in McDonald's would ever want to try that.
This is more geared towards businesses that are bringing significant dollars in. I think. it
We're
saves
adding
them-
on to their business here by putting an addition on or
Right.
getting a bigger building.
And if they're showing that type of growth, that's something we want to retain, because obviously they're showing that they want to remain where they're at.
Well, you know.
Well, you know, if I may, just for a second there, I think what we need to do is look at the big picture. Number one, we will never, ever give a mop to retail business. We haven't to this point, and we will. All right. So what you're talking about basically is manufacturing or offices or those type of things. In this particular case, the whole issue weighed was not just about the money, it was the fact that this company was offered more money to go someplace else and keeping them here, and what they were going to do by getting rid of a junkyard and putting in a clean business and actually bringing another business in instead of making the business they presently have into a warehouse, which would be no jobs, no city income tax. All of those factors weighed into taking the approach to try and retain this business of the Blackburns, not just for the money, but for the improvements it was going to do to the way the city looks by doing away with the junkyard under the Dean of Palucos Bridge, and by the fact that they were going to replace where they're at with another business for us. We didn't even have to go out and get it. So, you know, there's other factors just in plain dollars and cents.
Let me just go back to, you're making a statement, we will never give a mop to retail. Do we want to put that in this ordinance?
I don't,
But then you might also want to be cautious. What if you've got a giant retail store that wants to come in that's not here?
yeah.
Well, but that's, we're not
Then
talking
we have to go
we're not
and
talking
first
about that.
establish.
Let's say part two.
Do you really want to limit yourselves?
Well, I'm just asking the question because he made the statement.
Okay,
we're
I'm
never
asking
going
the
to.
question, do you want to put a limit on it, or do you want to be negotiable?
Well, you've got to have, if you look at it, you've got to have an annual payroll. So some retailers are never going to do that annual payroll based
Yeah.
on their base rate of pay, you know what I mean? And
Well-
until that impetus across the nation really works of the fact that I'm trying to raise the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm
Like the
asking the question
$70,000
based on what he said.
Seattle.
I-
Seriously, yeah.
We
I-
don't want him in town.
I don't think you ever want to limit your ability. You always have the right to refuse.
Well,
They
here,
can
Yeah, this is a
apply,
discretionary
and you have the
program.
right, it is, this whole thing, even though we took the word discretionary out, it truly is at the discretion of the mayor. And then if the mayor feels it's right to go forward, he brings it to council.
right.
Council has the right to refuse. So I don't think you ever want to limit yourself.
So if you put in exhibit in purpose, number one, if you put in a discretionary monetary cap,
Yeah.
discretionary, and the mayor can say no
Or
to
we can say
Walmart,
no.
but if I IKEA, I think I've never been to an IKEA store, but I hear they're huge.
Yes.
Then maybe we consider it. So maybe that would be a way to resolve this issue.
Well, I had the discretionary clause in the last one. Tom thought he wanted that out, so. I mean, in either way, the mayor's gonna bring it to you. The
Right.
council in the end had to approve it anyway.
Well, if it's a new business, I already said you have to have at least 10 people, which costs $350,000 annual payroll within a 3-year period. So there are already limitations in it. I just don't think, you've got to be cautious not to turn away businesses who might want to come, because it's an extreme competitive world out there with the various counties and cities offering things to get businesses in. IKEA, I love it. They're trying to get into Brookfield.
Well, let's put it this way. The number of businesses, if our occupancy rate is very high, which I believe it is, then we're talking about, for the most part, occupying existing buildings, or someone sells a building, like, or in the case of the Blackburns, it was they have 2 buildings, they were taking somebody out of one of the buildings they own and moving that business out and moving into that building, and then they were going to be offering that other building to an unknown at this point, company, and they had different offers on the table. So I guess my thinking about all of this is what maximizes our revenue that we are getting from having businesses in the city. I mean, the whole purpose of this is to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck for the taxpayers. And I would prefer the word discretionary in there myself, Dave, because I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that, you know, if we're going, as the mayor says, we're not giving a mop to retail, except maybe in some extreme circumstance like IKEA, which I don't even know if we have room for that. I would doubt it. To me, what it means is that we ought to be very clear up front who's eligible and who isn't. But we also ought to say, we're not going to give one to everybody. And then you get into the problem of, are we being discriminatory against some particular business or not? You know, so I think we have to be kind of careful about
Yeah,
that.
but
That's
we've
why-
set a precedence. Our precedence is, to this point, we have not given them up to.
And you've got to be careful. The more language you put in here, the more opportunity you have to be called discriminatory. Where if you leave it that it's got based on X, 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 you have an application ability to deny, at least you've opened up the door and you can look at any business that applies. Now, the business also has the ability to go to the enterprise zones or go to the county. You don't get into those parameters, so, I mean,
Well,
we have
actually,
other mechanisms.
The last retail business that came before me for a mop was Getco.
Yeah.
And Getco did not get a mop. I told them they would not get a mop. Number one, they didn't have the payroll. Number two, we just didn't get them out to retail sales. But I did bring in the county, and they ended up with funds on the land bank. So it worked out. And the land bank amount they got was pretty close to what they would have got from a mop. So in that case, we found another avenue for them and still retained them coming here.
So based on the new draft that we have, was there anything else you need to talk in the new draft? Because then the new draft could be
Where did you want to put that
adapted to
discretion in the new draft?
28, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the purpose, just go discretionary.
Discretionary grant?
I guess it's the same to the regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the purpose.
Or a discretionary monetary grant?
Yeah, whichever is best.
Yeah.
You had to put one on eligibility, it's moving up.
And it can
Yeah.
only apply
Although you
once,
haven't
it's gotta be in there.
It doesn't
And then
say
what
that.
I'll do is change the
Right, it's got, something's gotta be in there.
schedule of grant benefits under 3.
Yeah.
On the second line, I'll make it that it's clearly for newly created jobs.
Yes.
And then I'll change annual payroll to, total annual payroll to annual payroll related to newly created jobs.
Yes, that's exactly what I would. Other
And
than
if the
that,
cap's 50,000 anyway,
Right.
and then we want to make sure that it's the, once the time you submit council, it becomes public. I'll make sure that the one-time only is in here.
In your purpose, the last sentence, what about the available discretionary grant?
Okay.
Good place for it.
And one time, Joe,
Yeah.
would say that.
Yeah.
be awarded one time, I mean, we've talked about it, so businesses applying a
Yeah.
couple times, but a one-time award.
I might even make it a separate section.
Well,
that
Yeah.
it's one
We're
time.
talking about two different things here though, right? We're talking about the MOP and then the occupancy job creation program, so it's just two different.
No, we're gonna merge them. It's gonna be a jobs creation, occupancy and job creation program, only so you could have some connection to the old words we used, but it's really a jobs creation.
So we're changing the title of what we currently have then, so if you had a MOP, you couldn't get the job creation program, the new, right?
yeah, it's all going to be,
If you already had a MOP and then later wanted to create new jobs, if
Yeah.
you wanna make it a one-time only, then yes, that's it.
Okay. Just want to be clear enough.
I mean, do we have a consensus on that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Now, is the tax incentive board, does it meet regularly? Have you looked at these and?
Actually, the only time they've been meeting up to this point is when there was a need caused by non-payment to us of what was indebted to us.
Not be a bad idea, Josephine, to calendar once a year in December, January to have.
Oh, it can go over the mops too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you?
I thought we did a review. Yeah.
When I was on it, we were reading it was once a year.
Yeah, and it was in March.
Thought we did.
The one
That was the enterprise, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, in
There were
March.
two of them.
Yeah, and you did them both, I
Because I
think.
went out and reviewed the properties.
Yeah.
Right.
It correlates with the statutory requirement of review by March 31st.
Right. And they had to have an application in by X. Okay.
Do we still collect the profit tax then on the businesses?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a significant part of our revenue.
And,
So besides
have you ever
that,
visited
we
their,
also take
the
it-
Blackburn's property and know what they do?
Sure.
Yes, very good.
If they can pay as well as they do, they have no problem with a profit tax.
Well, they all pay this net profits tax. The offset is against the payroll tax.
Right, so I'm saying, but you're gonna make it up in profit tax.
Not necessarily, depending, well, let's put it this way.
Depends on
What is a profit and what isn't, and how you, net operating loss and all that affecting it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, no, not necessarily. But, as long as we're talking about only, for example, if they're creating 5 new jobs, which I think is pretty minimal, and we're gonna, you know, it'll be worth $5,000 total in payroll, or whatever they're gonna say it is, and we do 2% of $5,000 and then have that, it's gonna not be much of an incentive, let's put it that way. So, but.
Not
I-
against getting 2% for 10 years upfront cash.
Well, in this case, if it's only the new jobs, then it would be a 3-year rebate, right? We're talking a 3.
Correct.
Right. So if we make all that language clear, it's gonna be a 3-year rebate, not a 6, which, because I'm telling you,
The agreement we had on the table.
you may
was
not have been a
3 years.
copy on this, but I asked directly about the calculation of how much we were talking about in terms of a rebate from the Blackburn MOP. And, Mr. Blackburn confirmed with my calculation, which is $132,000 rebated over 6 years. This case, I don't have a problem with it.
Well,
They come in that way originally.
What's his payroll at, 2 to 3?
It's at 2 million and he was gonna add about 200.
The anticipation is
So
2.2.
if it's 2 to 3, if you wanted to allow the rebate based only on the new jobs,
Right.
but take the total payroll into account
No,
to
no.
determine the number of years
No,
that you would give them.
no, I don't think that's,
I could look at that.
I don't see that as a big, I don't see that as a desirable, we want to reward them for creating new jobs and
You wanna retain
and
them.
retain them, but, you know,
You
there's a
gotta
lot
level
of
the-
argument that none of this really helps in the long run, but we're gonna go
But
with
you gotta
it.
level the playing field, this is also talking about level the playing field with other communities who are gonna offer more, so we not only add some, we also retain, you could lose the entire business.
We could.
Blackburn, you could lose anybody if they come in with a mouse,
Right.
and you can't give them enough incentive. They can go out tomorrow, we go from money to 0.
Yeah, you have to look back at how Solon built Solon and Independence built Solon. The Independence built its Independence. Just-
Mhm.
They weren't stingy at helping people stay or convincing them to come in.
Unfortunately, that's one of the table with, he's one of those two.
Yeah.
We're
Independence is
maximally
offering
occupied,
I know they
I
are.
think.
2% for 10 years on their total payroll in cash when they move in. And we
Right.
can't do that.
But
But
if-
can we
if
give
they
them
said that
something?
They would stay if you gave them this.
If we gave them what the legislation reads for the Blackburns at this time.
Right. They will
In
stay,
fact-
otherwise they'll.
In fact, he said that he would even consider 5 years. So knock a year off, which would knock off $22,000 as a bargaining chip that he doesn't want to take advantage of the city. All he wants is something to give him incentive to be
Right.
retained here.
And
Well,
they were born
then
here,
here's-
they
then
grew up
here's-
here, they went to school
Let me,
here.
let me be
We are
clear.
Sylvia, why don't we consider this then?
I'm just-
Make the duration minimum
Uh-huh.
a 5-year thing.
You know, I don't think we want to be working through a specific company and saying, well, maybe they'll go for this. I think as a general principle, we should, and Don, I just want to be clear, the way that Joe has written this, it is not, and he's saying, it's not for their total payroll, so we aren't talking about, if we talked about 6 years of payroll, it would be 50% of $4,000 annually, it'd be $2,000 annually, it'd be $12,000 total. If I'm calculating this correctly,
But let-
so,
If he's not gonna buy
He's not
less
gonna
than
buy.
5,
No,
the
he's
goal
not
is to
gonna
try
buy it.
and keep the business here. And, I mean, this is just a tool, and we're talking about extra money. So if there was a consensus of the majority of council, since it's clear it's only gonna be 50% of new income tax, up to a maximum of $50,000. What's the problem with basing it on his total payroll? Because he's not gonna get anything other than 50% of the new income tax, up to a maximum of 50,000.
well, you know,
That
what-
way we make him happy at 5 years, and
I actually have no objection to the 5-year number, except in an existing business where we're doing only the new jobs, I don't have a problem.
That's what you said.
yeah.
Well,
See,
I'm
these
just
were all,
saying-
these were all arbitrary numbers we picked back.
Well,
You
then.
said it would be up to 50,000, 50% on the payroll for 5 years.
I've just computed the new payroll, and I'm telling you that this is not
Well, I
gonna
was
be anywhere
thinking of
close
just
to
making the.
what they were asking for
Making
originally. which was 130.
175,000 to $1 million, 5-year duration of the rebate.
For the,
On the new job.
for an existing.
Makes sense,
Yeah.
no.
No, it's gonna apply to both.
Okay.
If you wanted to separate and have a whole different schedule,
I think we need separate schedules.
do you want a separate schedule too?
So that it's very clear, and then those are all my concerns.
So then this could be the annual payroll related to the newly created jobs, but
Right.
it will be a new company schedule. Then I make a new schedule for,
The jobs that are staying, companies are being retained.
and then what, make the minimum 5 years?
Yeah, we can fight, argue that out on the,
Okay.
on the floor.
I agree
So we'll
with
do that one under new business, and then we'll make a separate one.
Are we changing the Blackbird program then? From what's written here?
Well,
Yes, the answer is yes.
the Blackburn program would still get then, if it passes, the way I understand to redraft this, they will get 5 years on new jobs, the new 5 jobs, or whatever they bring in.
That's
For
what
5
we-
years.
And that was on everything originally. So,
Guys, can we hear the committee's opinion? I'd like to hear what their thoughts are on all this. Chris? Not to throw you under the bus
he's
here,
brand
but-
new, you
I'd
realize.
like to hear what they think. I think it's
Yeah, well, that's fine.
appropriate.
Well,
Yes,
I think it's gotta apply to the new business. Actually, if you separate Blackburn, and you say, here's Blackburn existing and Blackburn new, they don't have a mop. The mop is for the new business, so that's all that should really count, right? I
Well,
mean, that
that's
payroll,
what
that
he's
payroll.
saying.
Well, because they don't have a mop, they didn't apply for a mop for the existing business, right? There's no such thing. It's only for the new business, so it has to be specified, that's the new business. I mean, I don't know
We've
what.
already, we've worked
Yeah.
that problem out.
Now, I don't know
We're
about
talking
independents,
about-
independents could be offering them the world, you know? Because they're not talking a new business little piece, they're talking the whole company, you know?
Do you have?
I saw what happened, I used to work in Sullivan, and I saw what they created enterprise zones, and they stole every company in the world, and you do drive by there now, and half the buildings are all for sale,
I know.
and it's decimated, you know? Taxes.
Well,
You know, it's
because
like-
you can
Yeah,
never.
but that's-
as soon as the enterprise ends, they're gone.
They're gone.
They're gone. They got
Yeah.
10 years and they're gone. I don't blame them. They build a new building, they play there 10 years, and they move on to the next city. You know, go to.
Well, you know, that is part of the argument, that
That's
this
the
doesn't
problem with
really
the
do any
enterprise
good.
zone. Yeah,
versus a new business coming in.
Right, and then what,
Chart.
the chart should be in 5 years, because they're saying, you know, they're just
The
using
siding
Bradford as an
company.
example.
That siding company,
Yeah,
began with an Ed.
it began with T, and,
Oh, Ed, I think.
no, that was
No.
there before the Girl Scouts and the Girl Scouts building. They were there
Oh,
exactly.
Norandix.
Mirandix.
10 years gone.
Yep.
But that was an abate.
But look at the Girl Scouts, they're stuck.
What's that?
Everybody thought the Girl Scouts were gonna disappear after a year.
Girl
Well, they
Scouts
did,
are
they got
doing
them out,
very-
but they never actually executed, they never collected on it, but it was, they didn't hire the number of people.
They never met the minimum
Yeah,
requirement.
Right.
Everybody
And
At
that
first,
does happen.
but now
They
they're,
have to do because they're nonprofit, they pay taxes.
they pay city income tax now and they're growing, but they didn't grow as fast as they thought they would. Go ahead,
We
Chris.
didn't hear, I'm sorry,
Poor
we didn't
guy.
hear from you.
Yeah, I know,
We're
we're waiting.
You're a vital part of this.
Well, I've done economic development for a city, so I have that in my repertoire of experience. And the one thing you don't want to do is keep chasing every single business, making exceptions for every business, because you'll never get ahead, and you'll end up losing your coat and everything you've worked hard for. So by trying to do this for one business, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. With that said, this is a great economic development tool. It's a job retention program, yes, but it's an economic development tool for the long-term stability and economic viability of the city. And so when you look at new businesses coming in and retaining existing businesses, you need to look at it both ways. So if you have a new business coming in, 3 years is good enough attraction to them. And trying to retain 5 years is probably pretty good too. So you need to balance those two out. The one thing that I'm a little concerned about is we look at this MOP from the city's point of view, but I heard the City of Independence thrown out there. And I've worked with the City of Independence, and they attract businesses not because of all their economic development. They attract their businesses by location. Cleveland Clinic opened up in their Independence Technology Center and brought in their payroll, not because of the economic development tool, but because of its location, and the Cleveland Clinic is very much into the health and welfare of their employees. And there's a trail going in next to the building, and that was a big attraction tool for that. So, you know,
Good point.
what we don't know is what the other communities are doing, and that's probably a shortfall. So if you're gonna use it as an economic development tool, you should know what Hudson's doing, you should know what Twinsburg's doing, you should know what Brecksville's doing, and the like that you're gonna be competing with. Because quite frankly, the Brookings Institute took a look at Macedonia. You have a hell of an economic development tool here by its location between the Turnpike 480 and 271. And the Brookings Institute out of Washington made this huge presentation in the city of Cleveland and highlighted this. And I think that was stunning to me that they looked at what everybody thinks is little Macedonia. And the rail traffic, the turnpike, the multimodal, those are great assets for the city. So, you know, that's my thought, being the new guy here. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Chris, you said a number of important things there. One of the things that really attracts high-quality companies is the quality of life, and we are starting to pay more attention to our park system, and I think we need to pay more. We need to the various types of amenities in the city, because it does affect the perception of the community. And you're right, I think the mayor has said many times that we have spent money on infrastructure, and I think that is correct. That has added and enhanced our attractiveness. So,
We do reciprocating, is that what it's called?
Reciprocating
With Hudson, you
We
can't
do.
steal each other.
well, in
Yeah,
theory.
Summit County, because Hudson stole a business from us, I went to the county,
Yeah, right.
and then the county came up with a MOU, not a MOP, anti-poaching. And see, we wouldn't have something like that with Independence, but in this particular case, Chris, somebody walked into my office and said, Mayor, I really want to stay here. but we're getting such a deal from, is there anything at all that you could offer us? And I said, we can try this.
And I think that's good as an economic tool to have that. Yeah.
And the, actually, the thing that caught my attention more than anything was getting rid of the junkyard.
So can I ask
Under
a
the
question
bridge.
then? What was Independence offering?
They're offering them 2% of $2 million for 10 years in checkup. I said cash, it'd be check. But-
You told us that we were there.
No, I wanted to.
So we're not talking 10 years, we're talking less. We're talking almost like a token. Well, we don't want to lose you because, and we don't want you to turn Roland Hold's building into storage. We want you to put a business in there, Tori, and if this will make a difference so that you will stay here, get rid of the junkyard and bring in another business, which will bring in more income tax, which we might end up giving them out to, I don't know. But the bigger the business, the better. Because it'll again be money we didn't have before. The money that we get from the junkyard is minimal because they have very few people working there. But it wouldn't be anything like we would get having Blackburns in that location. So you would be adding one to where Blackburns is now. You would be having Blackburns in a place that really doesn't generate anything and looks like hell.
Actually, I was over there actually checking that out. It doesn't really look as bad as you might think. And it's under that bridge, so you can hardly see it even.
Well,
Oh, I can see it going over the bridge.
Yeah,
It's
the
a very tall
idea,
bridge.
the idea of.
It's not that I think it's a
the
wonderful
bridge-
place, it's just that it's not horrible.
The idea about being
You gotta
under
ask
the
Mark.
bridge was that was thought to be the best place because we
Yes.
have, that is general industrial.
Right.
And when they started, Chris and the rest of you, they didn't have many cars. But now they're getting so busy and so big that they wanna move out, and Tory moving in there would get them going and
Well, Tori
get
wants
rid
to,
of them.
that's good.
No, I think a lot of this stuff we're talking about now, we're just starting to approach this in that future growth committee,
Yeah.
you know, that we're on about, you know, making the city look better to everybody, not only the residents, but people that drive through, and we get, look at the traffic we get from Twinsburg, it's unbelievable. So once they build that new thing over there, that FedEx,
Those will
we're
be-
gonna have trucks coming through here
Well,
like, this
we'll
is
see a
what's
lot of
scary.
truck
That's,
traffic.
you know, yeah, oh, what's,
Roy,
I think we'll have some very unhappy
So
residents.
there's a,
first weekend in May.
I get
On
a
the first
screening of the
Wednesday, I
phone.
think.
okay, it's a Wednesday, at what time?
7 o'clock.
Okay, there's a resident that lives on, 82, like right across the street from, United Methodist Church. And there's a house that went up for sale next to him. It's empty right now, and the traffic is crazy, but a lot of people are thinking about purchasing that because at the other end, there's another vacant lot and everything. We all think that that's gonna go retail sometime, you know, somebody's gonna buy that
It's
property.
R1 right now, right?
Yeah, but
It's,
it's
I already,
R1.
I was in the house and you would just like rip that, tear that house down and, you know, and use the barn,
Screw
I'm
that
sorry,
one.
but I would use the barn and rent the
We
barn
don't-
out
are
and
we-
buy the land and sit on it and wait.
But in an R1.
But, yeah, that's the zoning.
No, I know
thing,
that.
That's, they can't
Are,
just.
are we?
But you can always get the rezoned eventually.
I think-
Eventually it'll get rezoned.
So
Rita, I think
immediately
we've
back on
covered the
course.
waterfront, so can we?
Okay, yeah, oh yeah.
So we adjourn?
Is everybody, happy or? I'm happy with the way
I'm
it's
happy.
written.
Motion to adjourn.
We're-
Motion adjourned.
Are we adjourned?
Second?
Roll call?
No.
Hey, Joe, before you shoot, or scoot.
What do you think?
I also showed,
Not too.
It's always
I gotta go
complicated,
find
but
out.
if you look back and say, we get $575,000 total real estate operating, and a letter from Chris Scalise, that's what our renewal of
Hey, Sylvia, don't forget-
5.07 mil levy was about $575,000 a year.
Any consultants here that we, you know,